Alright, so now we're moving on to 5.5, which is standard form. By the end of this lesson and the next video, you should be able to graph linear equations using intercepts, and also you'll be able to write linear equations in standard form. This whole section is based on standard form, and what standard form is just another way to write linear equations. So right now we have y equals mx plus b. That was 5.3, and that was slope-intercept form, where we're given the slope and the y-intercept, and that's where we cross, where the line crosses the y-intercept. In the previous video you watched, it was point slope, which was y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. That was called point slope because you're given a point, x1 and y1, and then you're also given the slope. Now today we're going to be learning about standard form. Standard form of a linear equation is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers. That means a negative, positive number, or zero. There's no decimals, no fractions, and a and b are not both zero. So the a and b cannot both be zero. So for instance, notice 6 is our a. There's a 1 right here, so negative 1 is our b, and 12 is our c. Now we already know what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is, if I draw a little graph here, it's not going to be pretty, but a y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So this would be the y-intercept. Now what's the x-intercept? It's where the line crosses the x-axis, which would be right here. Now those are really close together, but you'll get a better picture of this when we move on to the next section. So make sure you understand what standard form looks like, because we'll be using it in the next problem. So how do we find x and y-intercepts? Basically what they're asking us is trying to find where a line crosses the x and the y-intercept. So how do we do this? Well, they give us an equation, and it's in standard form. 2x plus 6y equals 18. What I want you to do is I want you to write down 2x plus 6y equals 18. And I want you to write that down twice. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy that and paste it and move it over. Oh, that didn't work. Technology. I love technology, not as much as you. Oh, here we go. Alright, so how do I do this now with two equations? Why, Mr. Sand, did you just make me write this out twice? Because we have to find the x and the y-intercepts, we have to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we need to do that 2 times. By 2 times I mean you need to put 0 in for x here and leave y by itself. And then over here you need to leave x by itself and plug in 0 for y. Okay, so now we know that anything times 0 is 0, so these cross out. So all I have left is 6y equals 18. Now that's just a one-step equation. Divide both sides by 6, y equals 3. That means this line right here crosses the y-axis at positive 3. Now, this other problem, we plugged in 0 for y. 6 times 0 is 0, so that crosses out. I'm left with 2x equals 18, so I'm left with x equals 9. So that means the line crosses at the x-axis at 9, or positive 9. So if I were to just, this is going to be a very simple graph, but basically what this means is if this spot right here was positive 3 and this spot was positive 9, we could graph a line like this using those 2 points. Why don't you go ahead and try to do the next problem on your own by plugging in 0 for x on this side and plugging in for y on this side, and see what you get for the x and y-intercepts. Okay, so now that we have this all set up, I need to erase these negatives because I just realized that those were not negatives. My apologies on that. So as you can see, on the left side I plugged in 0 for x, and on the right side I plugged in 0 for y. We know that 3 times 0 is 0, so I'm left with negative 4y equals 16. Well, and if I divide by negative 4 on both sides, I get y equals negative 4. So my y-intercept is negative 4. And over here, keep change change. I know that negative 4 times 0 is 0, so we really didn't need to keep change change. And now I have 3x equals 16. When I divide both sides by 3, I get x equals. Now, here's the tricky issue with this one. This is an improper fraction, and 3 can't go into 16. So you can leave it as 6 over 3, or you can change it to a mixed number, which would be 5 and 1/3, which means it would cross the x-intercept at about 5.3 repeating. Sometimes you may have a fraction, but notice it doesn't say to graph on these ones. It just says define the x and y-intercept. Okay, so how do we graph these? So we have to use what we just learned on the previous page to graph them, just like we did up here in this mini little graph. So I need to write out my standard form equation twice. I won't use the cool technological way this time. I'll just rewrite it, even though I have really bad handwriting. And I'm going to plug in 0 for x over here. So 0. I'm going to plug in 0 for y over here. And now I'm just going to solve. Oops, sorry about that. So 4 times 0 is 0. So I'm left with negative 3y equals 12. Divide both sides by negative 3. I get y equals negative 4. Now watch what I do here. I take that negative 4, meaning that it's going to cross the y-axis at negative 4. So here's the y-axis. Here's the x-axis. I'm going to go down to negative 4 and put a dot. Over here, negative 3 times 0 is 0. So I'm left with 4x equals 12. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 3. So I go on the graph and I find on the x-axis, x equals 3, and I put a dot. Now I'm able to graph because I have 2 dots. I graph my line like this. Now this one's not going to be as accurate as a slope-intercept line or a point slope would be, but all we're doing right now is just trying to figure out where the line crosses the x and y-intercept. So right now, go ahead and pause this and just check to see if your graph matches up to mine. So as you can see through all my work over here, I plugged in 0 for x over here, and on this one I plugged in 0 for y, and I got y equals 1 and x equals negative 2. So I go find 1 on the y-axis, plot my point. I go over to negative 2 on the x-axis, plot my point, and now I'm able to graph my line through those 2 points, and I am finished. The last example that we're going to go through is graphing horizontal and vertical lines. Some of you may say, well, x equals negative 1. I have no idea how to graph x. It's not in point slope or slope intercept form. Well, I'm going to walk you through pretty basic steps to graph these. Notice it says x equals negative 1. So I want you to just go put a dot on x equals negative 1, which is right here on the x-axis. And this is the y. Now, the graph of x equals negative 1, some of you may say, I don't have the slope or the y-intercept, so I don't know what it is. It's actually just a straight up and down line like that. Now, some of you may be asking, what? Or not asking, just saying, what at your computer, trying to yell at me, saying that's impossible. But basically what that means is you can pick any dot on this line, and it will have an x equal to negative 1. So I'm just going to pick this one right here. What's the ordered pair of this dot right here? Well, it's negative 1, negative 5. What does it have as its x? Negative 1. Up here, what's this dot right here? Negative 1 over 3. What does it have as its x? Negative 1. So another way to remember this is if it's an x equals a number, it goes straight up and down. A way to memorize that or try to remember it on a test is if you're in the X Games, which is kind of like a skateboarding, snowboarding type of event, most people are going off jumps that are steep. Or, I mean, if someone was going snowboarding down a straight hill, that would probably not be too fun for them. But this is a little bit more extreme than just snowboarding on a straight line. So if this one is, which you guys already noticed, this one's a straight up and down line. So some of you are probably already writing down that this one's going to be a horizontal line, and you are correct. So all we're going to do is find y equals 4 on the y-axis, plot our point, and make our straight across line, because every single spot on this line has a y equal to 4. So x graphs are going straight up and down, y graphs are going straight across. Before we end this video, I want you to try to do these and match your answers with mine and see if you got them correct. Now notice I put the y one here now and the x one right here to trying to keep you guys honest. Your two graphs should look like this, because you go up to y equals 3 and you go straight across because it's a y graph. Every dot on this line has a y equal to 3. And over here I went to x equals 3 and I drew a straight up and down line because every single dot on this line has an x equal to 3. So make sure you know how to do all 3 of these skills that we went through, which was finding intercepts, graphing intercepts, and also graphing horizontal and vertical lines.